When you spend 2 decades wearing a motorcycle club patch, serving in leadership, and half a century raised in the life, among some of the largest organizations on record, there are several life lessons to be learned. This is one of those lessons. You know, one thing I've learned from all these years is that no matter what you tell people, no matter what you show people with your own actions, they're always going to be who they are. This lesson came the hard way for one of my dearest brothers, and someone I consider a best friend to this day. When you're out running and gunning in the club life, you know as well as I do something's bound to break off at one time or another. I tried to tell people you got enough working against you as it is. Don't help it along. But like I said, people are going to be who they are. If you've listened to any of my previous podcasts in this series, you know that Mr. Black told me once that when you enter a room thinking you're the biggest bully in the room, you may not be the biggest bully in the room. So, one night many moons ago, a couple of brothers were at a local watering hole, enjoying their fellowship. If I remember right, it was just the two of them, and they weren't that far from our local clubhouse. For whatever reason, I wasn't there that night. I don't know why, because it was a Saturday night, and I rarely missed them. But for whatever reason, that particular clubhouse had a lot of out-of-town visitors that night, from other chapters in our nation. There wasn't a scheduled party or anything, so they just come up to visit, which we often did. I might be getting a little bit of my details clouded, so forgive me. But the truth is, you don't know any better anyway. But I know there are folks who do listen to this podcast who do know better. In particular, one of the fellows that I'm going to talk about. In that local town tavern, there was a mix of patrons. Some were bikers, some were drug dealers, hell, some were probably both. But one of the club brothers that was in there is from that town and pretty much knows the streets very well. Well, I guess he was sitting at the bar, and someone who's known well in the streets for what he does had come up behind this particular brother, patted him on the back and said, "Hey man, how's it going? I ain't seen you for a while." Well, I'm sure plenty of you out there know as well as I do. If a brother has a chip on his shoulder, even something as polite as that can be bent out of shape. So how did my brother reply? By responding, "Don't touch my fucking patch." Well, there are two discoveries to be made here in this situation. The first one that should have been obvious to my brother, who had the chip on his shoulder, is that Citizen did not intentionally come up and smack his patch out of disrespect. I sure as hell hope most of you know who wear a patch. Citizens don't know our rules, and they're bound to make mistakes. Now, had that fella come up and smacked him on the back and said, "Fuck you" or "Fuck your patch," that'd have been a different story. But he didn't. The second discovery to be made here is when someone runs the streets and does what that fella does, allegedly, he's not going to settle for a manner of disrespect like that when he was just trying to be nice. So what do you know? Words were exchanged, and before they knew it, all hell broke loose. Now I will say that my club brother made up for his lack of brains with his big brass balls. That fellow was in there with about 10 of his people, and like I said, there were only 2 of ours. Our 2 brothers did the best they could, but didn't come out on top of that one. But they had enough in them to get on down the road and head back to the clubhouse. Then what do you suppose happened? Yep, you probably guessed it. The entire clubhouse of probably 25 or 30 guys emptied and headed right back down to that bar. It turns out that street thug dude wasn't no smarter than my brother, because they were still there. And as you can imagine, retribution was delivered in the most egregious manner. Now you might be wondering what this big lesson is here that I'm about to tell you, because that sounds pretty normal for most motorcycle clubs I ran with. I hate to be the voice of reason, but that's just who I am. And I know that some of you will disagree with my opinion, and that's okay. If I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. One of the other brothers that went to the bar, the one who happens to be a very good and dear friend to me, somehow was the only one caught on camera inside that bar delivering retribution. So when Johnny Law Dog came to investigate after everything was over, they had one of our guys on tape delivering that retribution. And that changed my brother's life, because he caught a felony conviction for that simple bar fight. Because the American injustice system are a bunch of asshole hypocrites who don't care about right or wrong. They only care about convictions and fines. Nobody died, nobody went to the hospital, Nobody on either side pressed charges, but the hypocrite prosecutor decided to press their own charges as if they had any skin in this game. Hell, I think if they wanted to press charges, they should have come down there and got their asses beat like them other guys. Then you can press charges, you bitches. My point is, are you all about yourself and your ego and your attitude, or are you about your brothers? Because some clubbers are trying to show what a Billy badass they are by being an asshole, and they don't need to be. And one of his brothers lost his freedom for a spell, lost his job, as well as a lot of his rights, since he is now a convicted felon. Over what? A fucking friendly smack on the back and a fella saying, "Hey, how's it going?" Like I've said before, your club is only as smart as its dumbest member, and there ain't no IQ test to get in. Save your hostility for when it matters. Don't put your ego and your attitude before the lives of your brothers, because if you do, you ain't nobody's brother. Even stupid shit like getting a DUI or doing dumb shit and getting locked up for a weekend might be a weekend that one of your brothers gets shot and killed when something breaks off with an enemy. And for all you know, if you would have been there, you might have been able to stop it. So use your head for more than just a helmet holder. But what the hell do I know? I'm just Tabasco the biker. Keep it real.
In the club life you can't